Hey everyone, welcome back to the Road to 2000 series. This is episode 20. So, earlier in the week, I hit a new peak rating of 1936, and the game that got me to that rating I'm going to show in this episode today. Um, so, I had the black pieces, and it was a Caro-Kann game, but I'm calling this like the Caro-Kann nostalgia game because I feel like the opening few moves was kind of typical of how I've been getting an advantage in the Caro-Kann for ages. Like probably from like the rating of 1400 to 1800, this sort of game or this sort of opening stages of the game was very typical of how I would win games with the Caro-Kann. Um, Nowadays, like at my like in the 1900s, I guess I don't have as many sort of quick wins with the Caro-Kann, but yeah, let's get into the game and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so my opponent played e4 and I played the Caro-Kann, which is c6, and then my opponent plays d4 and I play d5. And now they went for the advanced Caro-Kann with e5, and bishop f5 here is a move. I sort of play the c5 line. Pretty standard. Either of these moves are, I think, the computer recommendation, and they each have different sort of like flavors to them. Um, and I've featured this sort of position quite a lot on the channel. Like taking is pretty common. Yeah, what else is common? I suppose c3 is common, which is what they played here. But after my opponent played c3, I take this pawn on d4. My opponent takes back, and I play knight c6. And here, I think you know, quite a common move from white, which is not very good, um, is knight f3. This pawn's not like I'm not winning this pawn right now because the queen defends it, but still a lot of people play knight f3. And yeah, my opponent here played knight f3, but it's not a great move because it really allows me to get out my light squared bishop with kind of tempo or with a very active to activate my light squared bishop very easily. Um, so yeah, after bishop g4, like knight f3 is a very natural looking move. I doubt it's sort of like a huge mistake, but um, the typical kind of middle game plan of the Caro-Kann, after you exchange on d4, is to just target this backward pawn. And if I can use my light squared bishop to sort of indirectly target this pawn, which is what I'm doing when I pin this knight, it's it's really good. It's really good because otherwise the light squared bishop wouldn't be very active in attacking this pawn. Um, and now I actually do kind of have a threat, which is to take this knight, because if I take the knight and the queen takes, then that pawn is undefended. Um, I might not want to do that straight away. Like, it might be a little bit risky, seeing as though I'm not castled and this pawn's not defended. But um, yeah, it's sort of a lingering threat, I would say. Okay, so now my opponent pins me with bishop b5. That's also, I suppose, a normal looking move. Queen a5 check doesn't do anything because my opponent can block with the knight, which defends the bishop. So I play queen b6. Not sure if it's the best move, but it attacks the bishop, exerts more pressure here, kind of exerts pressure here long term. It's sort of where the queen often wants to be in these Caro-Kann positions. Um, okay, my opponent plays knight c3, which attacks this pawn. Um, yep, so I think I have a pretty simple move to defend that pawn, which is e6, and this sort of solidifies the structure. My bishop is outside the pawn train. So this is just a really nice setup for black, I think. I mean, I can turn on the analysis. I'm not sure exactly what the... yeah, I mean, I suppose after bishop e3 or castles, white still has a slight advantage, but any other move is black has an advantage, and maybe sort of practically speaking, it feels like a nice position for black. We're exerting pressure on this backward. Well, I've been calling it a backward pawn. I'm not sure if it's actually a backward pawn, but yeah, I think it's a pawn that can't be defended by another pawn. So it's a sort of structural weakness for white. Then my opponent voluntarily takes this c6 knight, which doesn't seem like a good move to me. It sort of just helps me. It helps me solidify my center. So I take back with the b pawn. And now my opponent castles, and now that sort of latent threat that I had a few moves ago of taking, and taking, well, I had the knight here that was going to take, but now the queen does the same thing, is really more attractive, and it's really just winning a free pawn, because my center is so solid now that it's no longer risky to just take, and win the pawn. And once you win this d4 pawn, the e5 pawn becomes very weak. So, yeah, this is sort of what I mean by, like, the Caro-Kann nostalgia. From, after I do win this pawn, because I do play takes, and win this pawn, the game becomes a little bit non-standard. But, one of the real successes I had with playing the Caro-Kann in the past is through winning this central pawn, and then even winning this pawn too. Yeah. Okay, so now this pawn is hanging. My opponent kind of needs to defend it. They play rook e1, pretty normal defensive looking move. I bring my knights to e7. The knight often wants to go to one of these squares to exert pressure. Whoops. On white center. b3, I suppose white wants to play bishop b2 and sort of attack my queen or win this pawn. And now I play knight g6 to attack this pawn, and my opponent played bishop b2. And now I had to decide if I could take this pawn, and I spent a bit of time thinking here. It looks a little bit risky, like if you take this pawn, if there's any sort of discoveries with the knight. But, the crucial thing about taking this pawn is that it attacks the queen. So I thought that I could take this pawn, and in the end I did take it. I thought that probably queen e2 was the most challenging move, because that attacks my knight. And if I were to move my knight, let's say back to g6, then if white moved their knight somewhere, their bishop on b2 is defended. So, yeah, like I thought maybe if I take this pawn, they play like queen e2, I move back. Maybe something like knight b5, I thought, could be a strong idea. Going for this fork. I did, I think, see this position and thought that I always had something like queen b6 at the end to defend. It's not super comfortable, though, because I'm going to have a hard time getting this bishop out without, hanging the g7 pawn. So I thought this was worth it. Like, it looked a little bit uncomfortable, but I've won, the other central pawn, so it should be good for me. So yeah, I did that. I think that was the line that I saw, and I decided to take the pawn. But my opponent instead played this move, queen g3, which I didn't feel was as scary because now if I move the knight somewhere, there's no, well, maybe there is a discovery because they're threatening a check, but the bishop is hanging. So, yeah, I thought the queen had to go to e2 so that it's defending the bishop. Yeah. Anyway, my knight is under attack, so I have to move it. I thought knight g6 was pretty logical. Then my opponent played queen c7, which looks quite scary, but I mean, I always have queen b6, and a queen trade would be a dream for me, so I play queen b6, my opponent moves back. And now I think, this is the sort of position I've got. I'm up 2 central pawns, definitely, winning, definitely much better for black. But I need to just be a little bit precise, I think, in kind of untangling everything. And yeah, I think, I can't remember exactly what I played here. It was rook c8, that's what I was thinking. It wasn't the most accurate move. I thought I just wanted to control this dark squared diagonal a bit more and maybe ask for a queen trade. I suppose I could have just played queen b8 anyway, yeah, which is one of the top moves. So this was a bit of a waste, but also not terrible. Okay, my opponent brings his rook. I play queen d8 now. Yeah, so then I sort of went back on my plan, so a little bit inconsistent with rook c8 and then queen d8. But my new plan was to get the bishop to d6 to harass that queen and then just castle. So I played queen d8. My opponent played knight a4 and opening up that dangerous bishop. But I can definitely play still bishop d6, attacking the queen. But yeah, now my opponent played queen c3, so that if I castled, I would be getting checkmated. So I definitely can't do that. And yeah, I think here, it took me a while to find this move because it's very, well, maybe it's an easy move to see, but it just took me a while to find it because I really like this sort of structure, especially with the dark squared bishop. It looks really solid. But thinking a little bit more, there's a move here that's just very simple, sort of subtle move, but it really clamps down White's play. And yeah, I suppose you can pause the video, even though it's not a super tactical. It's not a sharp move. It's just the top engine move, a positional kind of move. But yeah, so the move that I played is just e5, and yeah, it sort of is well defended. It looks scary. They can play f4, making use of this pin. But I can always play f6 there, or I think f6. Well, actually, if they play f4, I can just take it with a knight. I think, yeah. Well, actually, that's interesting. If they play f4, would we take with the knight? There might be sacrifices here. I suppose we can play queen e7. No. Then they take on f4. That's what I was thinking. We can always drop back with the knight, of course. Play something like knight e6 to defend everything. So, yeah, I actually didn't see that. I think maybe if they played f4, I was just going to play f6. But, yeah. So, and then after e5, they actually just resigned. And yeah, you might think that's a bit of a premature resignation, and I mean it probably is, but in my experience, when White, plays e4 and we play the Caro-Kann, if White loses their 2 central pawns, well, if White loses one of those pawns, it's really hard to play, and the reason is that it often leads to losing the second pawn. So, yeah, a little bit premature perhaps, but I actually think this is just a really, I mean, of course, this is just a really good position for black. We're up 2 pawns. We've got an amazing center. All of white's sort of play along the diagonal has been shut down with e5. Black's going to castle, and once black's castled, I think the game is pretty much over. But yes, that was the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a bit of a short one this week. But yeah, I hit my new peak of 1936. Feel like, making decent progress towards the 2000 mark. Yeah, and let me know what you thought of this game. If you play the Caro-Kann, if you've had similar sort of games. I definitely feel like I've had a lot of games as I was sort of coming up the rating ladder where I won a central pawn through like this sort of setup where they bring the knight out like a little bit too early and you can pin it and have this bishop active in trying to win this pawn. Yeah, and this is actually better for black already. So one of these moves that I played, probably queen b6, isn't one of the top moves. Takes. Yeah, already, well, I think queen b6 probably wasn't the best move. But not a bad move either. Just wanted e6 earlier. Yeah, but thank you everyone for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time.